Okay, so let's get to voting by mail. So voting by mail is a little bit more complicated because voting by mail is not an option, not a voting option open to the entire demographic, at least in Texas. You have to qualify to vote by mail, and you qualify to vote by mail if you are 65 years or older by election day, if you will be out of the country during early voting and election day, if you are confined in jail but otherwise eligible, if you have a disability, more information on the next slide. But essentially, if you want to qualify to vote by mail, you essentially need to fit into any of these categories. Now, about the disability, what qualifies as having a disability, and what about COVID-19? So let's say let's say you want to vote by mail, and you're not 65 years old or older, and you will not be out of the county, or you're not confined in jail, but you still want to vote by mail. So the only option you have left, potentially, is to qualify by having a disability. And let's take a look at how COVID-19 and the factors of COVID-19 could factor into you potentially being able to vote by mail. So under Texas law, you qualify as having a disability if you are sick, pregnant, or if you're voting in person, or if voting in person will pose a health risk to you. So the Texas Supreme Court ruled that lack of immunity of COVID-19 can actually be considered as a factor when requesting a mail ballot. However, an individual must have an existing illness or physical condition to qualify as disabled in light of COVID-19. Note, in other words, it is up to the voter's discretion to declare themselves disabled when requesting a mail-in ballot in fear of a lack of immunity to COVID-19 because of an existing condition. So essentially what this means is, so let's say you want to qualify for the disability to vote by mail. However, and you want to factor COVID-19 into this. So let's say you have a disability, a pre-existing disability or pre-existing illness like diabetes or cancer. If you have a pre-existing illness like diabetes and cancer, and you're afraid of potentially contracting COVID-19 because you're already immunocompromised, you can count that as actually, you can actually count that as having a disability, and you're therefore eligible to request a mail-in ballot. However, it is at your discretion. You know, if you ask a friend or anything like that, like, you know, at the end of the day, you're the one that's filling out the form. So you have, you're ultimately making the decision, and because the Texas Supreme Court made a rule that is some way more ambiguous, you know, if you just fill out disability, that's all you have to do. But at the end of the day, if you are afraid of potentially contracting COVID-19 and potentially having negative impacts on your health because of that, you have the right to request this mail-in ballot, and you have the right to actually apply as actually being disabled because of having a pre-existing illness and potentially contracting COVID-19. Perfect. So now if you qualified to vote by mail, this is the actual process as to actually do that. Okay, now let's vote by mail. So first and foremost, what you have to do is you have to apply. So go to your county elections website to request or print an application. So, you know, the famous website that we've been using throughout the entire presentation, votetexas.gov. You fill out, sign, and mail to your election administrator in the county where you are registered to vote. And the application, you have to make sure the application is received, not postmarked by October 23rd, 2020 for the general election. So essentially, you go to the same website that I demonstrated in the little demo. You scroll down and you click on voting by mail and requesting that. You're going to be prompted to the application process, which shouldn't take that long. And once you do that, you're going to be able to receive your mail-in ballot if you qualify. The second step is to confirm your application was received. Call your county office 7 to 10 days after you sent in your application. Voters will receive ballot 30 days before election, in around early October, or 7 days after the office received an application. You have to make sure that it's filled out with a black or blue ink, and that you sign with a similar signature as application. That way, you know, just to avoid any type of issues as a result. So basically, once you apply, after 7 to 10 days, give your county office a call and be like, hey, have you guys received my application? Just to make sure that everyone's on the right track and that nothing has happened to your application. So lastly, once you receive your ballot, you fill it out, as mentioned, and you submit it. So the way you submit it is you can simply mail your ballot back to the county. Ballot must arrive by election day. So again, this process is essentially dependent on time. Once you receive it, you fill out your ballot as soon as possible and you mail it back. Or a second option to submit it is you can submit your ballot in person to a designated drop-off county location, and the voter must present appropriate voter ID to turn in marked ballot. So the second option is, if you want to make sure that your ballot is actually not accidentally not counted for, you can actually request to have the mail-in ballot. You can fill it out in your home, and once you seal it, you can actually go in person to a designated drop-off location and submit it. That way you can make sure that your mail-in ballot is counted for. That's the second option. So as long as you do either one, you should be good to go. And again, this is very time sensitive. So as long as you do it ahead of time, you'll be good to go for the entire process. Perfect. Now, so let's